Hello, everyone. Okay, so welcome everybody to today's episode. For today's episode, the intent, I want to speak about religion. And I thought that I give a disclaimer from before that in this episode, usually I talk about the world. I try to look from as many angles as possible, but I wanted to focus on a religious idea. And so, as one human being on this planet, we do not have relationships with just physical content and events, like physical phenomena. We also have a relationship with, as Immanuel Kant would say, with non-physical noumenon, with inner events. This is an idea that is personal to me. I don't know if others have spoken about it the way I'm going to speak about it. But I'm going to share with the viewers a sort of experience and something that has come to my attention pretty much. Where I asked myself what is going on in this world, and for a second my mind, I saw this very bizarre video where in this video they were like chanting God's name, and like it's this bizarre video online. And I don't know how to say it, but I don't know if many people know this, but in the Islamic tradition, for example, you hear the word halal meat. Like that halal meat is like a unique process. There's a specific way that they in some sense, process the animal, right? So what it is that they pretty much bring like a sheep, and they, like, in the video I saw, pretty much there's this sheep, and like brought out of the farm, the sheep is freaking out, and then this guy puts his hand on the head of the sheep and pets the head of the sheep and just keeps saying God's name, right? And this sheep automatically becomes calm, and then the guy uses the ears of the sheep to, in some sense, cover the sheep's eye, and the video doesn't show them killing the sheep, it just shows the sheep calming down. It's like it was a viral video on YouTube, I think. I don't know if it was viral, but it was a video on YouTube. And so I thought, like, okay, this world has given us an ability to articulate reality, and what that means is our eyes open, we receive information, and based on who we are and what we are and the uniqueness to our DNA and how we're raised and everything, in some sense what we do with this information, that's where our choice is. Do you know what it is? Human beings are like programmers of certain realities in this world. That means it's like you're a programmer, part of a company, and this is the part of the universal sector. With your existence, you're reprogramming, you're reshaping. We cannot ignore that the universe has a presence. We cannot ignore that we have a presence. We cannot ignore that there's a commonality of presence. In many traditions, for me, let me say it this way, I was that kid who, when I heard the idea of the soul, at first I didn't care. The mind was a mystery. But then something happened that I was like, what are the ancients talking about? And I realized, like, I went into this Alice in the Wonderland rabbit hole. People don't know this, right? But I went through this rabbit hole of just next level, like, personal research, you know? I don't know how many people do this, but like for me, like at the beginning, I just got a notebook and I was just looking up, like trying to understand what people have said, what people before I was born, how their eyes were looking at the world, right? Now, why am I focusing on like religion here, right? I'm trying to like share this perspective of this human being that was raised in a theocracy, that was born in a theocracy, you know, and then moved to Canada. And in some sense, I don't know how to tell you, but I have experienced religious culture, religious being ingrained in the political system, do you know, of a country, right? Like, for example, America, Canada, politics is separate, like church and state are separate. Right? But for example, in Iran, mosque and state are not separate, and there comes a danger because religion is ultimate authority, politics is human mind. And when politicians use religion to, in some sense, administer something, they are acting like God. They will have the biggest sin, probably. Do you know? I'm telling you, when religion is used for a political intent, let me tell you why that's messed up. Okay? It's messed up because the concept of monotheistic religion is the idea of surrender and submission to the divine will. But the concept of, in some sense, political expansion is domination. So how can you behave dominantly and act like you believe in God? Do you know? There's something there, right? Because in some sense, every human being, right, has a class system, and it's based on your experience. Like if you're a human being, if you're a being in a world that you're considering there are beings in other dimensions, then like the strongest alpha of one dimension comes in front of you and you just stare as if like, you know, it's like, how many worlds do you know? Do you know? What I'm trying to say is that the intelligence of the human being is a presence, and this presence is static, but the moment we move, we animate into a personality. We are the eyes of the stars. Literally, the stars go in our eyes and we see stuff, you know? Sometimes I don't know if what I'm seeing, like when I look at the world, is it freaking light? Is it just like pure information? Or is it what I am experiencing on levels of, let's say, emotion, or levels of, let's say, subjective inner eventhood? Do you know? So anyways, to allow myself the simplicity to get through this episode, personally, as a human being, I've had moments where life has to me. You know, or like philosophical panic attacks. That means, and when it comes to conceptualizing reality, and imagine like you're going on, like living your life with like a version of reality in your mind that makes sense, but now imagine suddenly that version of reality stops making sense, and so the human being is left to, in some sense, it's kind of like, this is bizarre, but it's like our beliefs and ideas and the language in our minds are like clothing on our naked mind. Do you know? Or how would I say it? It's like clothing for the mind. Now, what if you take off the clothing of the mind? So what happens, like right now it's -5. It was super cold this morning, but it's -5 right now in Etobicoke, Canada, where I'm giving this talk. And alright guys, maybe if I move my car back a little bit, the Wi-Fi connection is going to be better. So theoretically, the car is closer to, you know, to the coffee shop's Wi-Fi I'm using in the parking lot, you know. You know, if somebody says, Mr. Within, do you have a studio? I'll be like, does a car count? Anyways, to continue. The intent of this episode is, I'm going to fearlessly talk about, certain views I have on religion. I've had an experience, and this experience has shown me how, in some sense, small I am in the presence of this world. And when you, as a human being, think about it, like I've ran 31 laps around the sun, and in these 31 years, life has shown me that I am not the same body. My body has changed throughout the years. I am not the same mind, same psychology, same idea. Now when I look at reality, there are dimensions behind what I see. But before, when I was younger, it was simple. And do you see, this is the innocence of childhood. The innocence of childhood is the child has a sort of innate faith that its first world is the actual world. And it's so remarkable because, this is a bizarre metaphor I'm going to use, but just like a snake sheds its skin, the human being matures into a comprehension of the experience of reality. That means the intensities of reality. The older you get, you suddenly begin to wonder about what it was all about, And some people, I've had people challenge me, throughout the years giving these talks. Not that many, but, few. And you know what it is? I would say what I am doing is that I am just that person, I would say, who has noticed something ahead. I'm seeing ahead. I'm seeing something upcoming. Some people are going to be like, upcoming? Do you mean disclosure, Mr. Within? Celestial disclosure? And I'll be like, no. Creatures, if you were to classify beings of power and ability, a physical creature is like the bottom of the ability. That means we are able, but we're not, like, there is so much. It's like, you know what it is? We're like soldiers in a rank in an army, and there's a ranking system, and there are higher ranks. And different traditions have acknowledged, when it comes to the idea of the soul, that the soul, in some souls of the same rank, notice each other. And souls that are not of the same rank, it's as if they automatically separate. And this idea, guys, I'm not just saying this. They had this view that when it came to the classification of the soul, there was a ranking system, but this ranking system was based on responsibility and clarity. A person can be responsible, but they might not have clarity. But imagine you had clarity, and then you understood the response you needed to after the moment. Because what is responsibility? It's our ability to freaking respond. This idea is very abstract. If you're a person of secular mind, I'm not sure how this episode's going to benefit you. This episode has to do really with my experience of God in this lifetime. And there came a moment pretty much where, how I'm writing the title, Giving the Soul Back to God, right? People are going to be like, in what imagery should I visualize the title of your talk? And I'll tell you, it's not something you can visualize. The only way this sentence arose to my mind, oh God. All right, guys, I might have to make this part one, and then any moments where I have spoken and the world has, in some sense, found those words only to be necessary for my ears. I find myself blessed to be in the human experience. I find myself honored to be part of the human experience. I find myself fascinated by how something temporary and physical can be in a world where the causal position is not a thing. You see, I'm a person who, I'll share certain idiosyncrasies I have with the viewers. I think throughout the years, I think it's impossible to give 10,000 talks and then people not to know, see more dimensions to. So I'm just going to share. So I'm a person who, let me tell you, a strange habit I've had since childhood. So to give viewers a perspective of kind of like how my mind came to the sentence. My father was when I was born, my father was a very, he had lived in America in, Orange County for like a decade, and his experience of life was more of like a spiritual businessman. And my mother was like a religious housewife, And both of them, since my childhood, one thing that they ingrained in me and my brother was this notion that decency and kindness has value. So my mind had a view of religion. I remember remembering my mother pray, in my home. Or every time there's something in Islam called the azan, right? And it's the call of prayer. Anytime that call of prayer would come, I have a twin brother. So imagine like me and my twin brother are like, I don't know, 7 years, like, I don't know, maybe like young, like 8 years old or something. And my mother would, in some sense, every time she would hear the call of prayer, she would just stop what she's doing and she would just, in some sense, they call it sajda in the Eastern context, but she would in some sense bow to the moment. She would like bow to the presence of God in the moment when she would hear the call of prayer. And me and my brother, we were young, we were just playing, but anytime my mother would put her head down, right, me and my brother would also put our heads down, but we didn't know why we were doing it, and we would look at each other, and my mother would be in the front, and then me and my brother would start giggling, I told him, years later, like, man, you knew so much stuff. Why didn't you say anything when I was younger? Why are you like now talking about all the stuff you knew when I was young? I gotta just pause this and go listen to what I've recorded so far to see if like how it is. So guys, I checked it. It sounds normal. I don't know why people can't hear it. Like maybe. Okay, let me just change my parking spot. Jesus, in the middle of talking about theology, I gotta change my car.